everybody, and welcome to the Meaty Gold Show. We're joined by another hockey player today. We had Jared on a week or two ago, and I was like, Justin messaged me, and we've known each other for quite some time, and I was like, yeah, we got to get Justin on. And then Justin was like, yo, Sam, you ready to pump one out? And I was like, let's do it. So everybody, welcome Justin Shuggs to the podcast. Mr. OHL, Mr. got drafted to the Carolina Hurricanes and is now running. I'll let you announce it.
Just started the Shugg Academy.
Shugg Academy. Wait, what was the saying you have on your website? Oh, the Shugg experience?
The Shugg difference.
The Shugg difference. I think it's creative.
Yeah, very creative. My wife and I we've thought about this, like life after hockey. And here we are.
It's like a whole other world, eh? Because I mean, all you've known is hockey for so long.
Just hockey and the entertainment side of being an entertainer. Like,
yeah,
I've never had to think anything more of just going out and performing at the best of my ability.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because like life in hockey, a lot of guys get engrossed in it, and then it's like you have to find something outside of it if you're not, making, well, you're going to always make a livable wage no matter what you do in the NHL, but more so just like actually like full on playing, you're going to have to find a way to live your life outside of it. And you've done a pretty good job at it.
Yeah. I like most players or guys, like you're laser focused, right? Like you have to perform at an elite level where the skill level and the work ethic is only growing as you get older. So how do you stay in the NHL? How do you stay in the American League? How do you surpass the next player? Because if you don't surpass the next player, they're going to surpass you. And then where do you end up in the totem pole? Right. So like, as you're trying to do this and be laser focused for 12 months a year, you have a lot of time on your hands also, like when you're not training or when you're not preparing for a game.
Right, because it's all you're ever focused on. It's all you have, I guess, not all you have to your name, but just like that's the one thing in your life that's what you're working towards.
Well, yeah, that's what it takes to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like all or nothing.
Yeah. It's like you're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
Right?
So let me give a little intro for our audience here of your qualifications to talk about hockey and the Shugg Academy and the Shugg difference. But Justin, and you correct me if I'm wrong or if I miss anything, but Justin was drafted to the, what team again?
Carolina Hurricanes.
Carolina Hurricanes in the 4th round.
105th overall.
105th overall. That number will never leave your head, will it? Like that is like your number.
Yeah. Well, like life experiences, that's like we went to the draft and I had a great time. Even though I sat there and had more anxiety and more stress waiting as my name didn't get called. But like right when it gets called, like just alleviates all pressure.
And it's almost like just like a thrill of joy your whole life.
Oh yeah.
To that moment.
Yeah.
I remember Jared, it's interesting. Like it's cool because like I remember Jared saying when he got drafted, his story is a little bit different, but he had those similar emotions where it was like you could relax for just 10 seconds and just know that everything you did to sacrifice schoolwork, to sacrifice your grades, to not work a job, because I know playing AAA and OHL, you don't have time to work a job. Everything you did, successful, you're good. But then it's like you realize after that, like, oh, okay, now I have to go back to work.
Yeah, like on a Tuesday or Wednesday when you're 18, 19 years old and your buddies are going out and you know that you have to train the next morning, like you're not staying out. Like there's so many sacrifices, the amount of Christmases and Easters and family events that I've missed to dedicate time to hockey it goes unseen by most people.
Yeah.
Right. So now that I've been retired for a year and I'm able to make relationships and grow roots in the community again and, come on a podcast and do something like this.
Yeah, it's cool, eh?
Yeah. And having a daughter, Simona, who's going to grow up in the area, like I want to make the connections again and I want her to have fun in the area and be able to do what she wants to do. So, yeah, it's been really thrilling to retire. Most guys, like we could go on and on about what it's like after the game. Like for some guys, it's it's awful, right? Like you go from being laser focused to what do you do?
Yeah.
Like how do you spend your time? Like what gets you off?
Yeah. What was the statistic you pulled out that said 3.8% of all players in the NHL score more than 20 goals a year?
Correct.
20 or more.
Yeah. I think it's 3.7 or 3.8%.
That's insane.
Of players score 20 goals in the NHL. So like that's where it's just, every
lifetime?
Like 2001, 2022, it was 3.7% of players.
So 20 years.
To score 20 goals in the NHL.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so
I thought it was annually. No, it's...
So 650 players, 32 teams, 12 forwards that are in the lineup, 3.8% of the 650 players-ish, like,
yeah,
given a point here, a point there, but score 20 goals in the NHL. So growing up and teaching, like, everybody wants to be the goal scorer, right? But if there's only 3.8% of players in the NHL scoring 20 goals, how is everybody else making money in the NHL?
That's an interesting topic.
Right? Like how many players get paid on shot blocking? Like if you're top 5 in shot blocking, or if you're top 5 in passing percentage, or top 5 in hits. Like Kyle Clutterbuck, local, has had a great career, has led the NHL multiple years in hits. Dan Girardi led the league in shot blocking, has had a great NHL career, right? So there's not always the Connor McDavids or the Nathan McKinnons
who just score all the time.
Right.
That's interesting. Do the NHL teams structure like how much they pay you based on, like, let's say you've been in the league for 5 years. Do they structure their pay to that specific person based on like how many shots you got blocked, how many hits you had? Like what
I think it like
how in depth does it go?
I think it's like by choice by the general manager. Like
really? So it's like team by team.
Well, you have to see like where your salary cap lies, what you can afford. And then, based on these analytics, is player X and player Y the same, but maybe history shows that player Y is taking a less of a salary to do the same thing player X is. So there's a lot of different like moving parts when you're trying to build a club. You might have players on your team that you inherited from another GM, and now you're trying to use them and use their contracts either in and within your team, or you're trying to get rid of them.
Right. Now you also got drafted to the OHL first round 10th pick. Am I right?
Yes.
To what team?
Oshawa Generals.
And how here's the thing is like, it's one thing to get drafted to the NHL. Like that's like the end all. Like that is like every hockey player's dream who plays AAA. Well, most I think, but like to get drafted to the OHL, especially in the first round, and be a top 10 pick, did you have a sense of, I can make it at that moment? Or was it like throughout your entire AAA career where you were like, I can make it?
Yeah. I love the game. And that was my number one goal, was to play in the NHL. And I had played on good teams growing up. And I noticed when I was the elite player on the ice. So it wasn't the matter of if I could make it. Like I 100% believed in my head that I was going to play in the NHL. To stay in the NHL and have a 10 career is a different story.
Yeah.
Like I would love to have played in the NHL for 10, 15 years. I think it's based on opportunity, and if you seize a moment or a game, and you never know who could be watching you, right? So going back to like, you're coming up, you sign a professional contracts, there's 50 contracts on each team, and every year there's going to be a new first round pick, a new second round pick, a new third round pick, and you're competing internally with these players to play in the NHL. And you could be competing in the American League with your friends to try to make it to the next step, which like it's a dog eat dog world down there. Like your friends, you want to win, but you also want to move up and play in the NHL.
And that's where you really did well. Like that's where you kind of played mostly professionally, was the AHL. Is that right? Or?
Yeah. So I played 5 years basically in the American Hockey League with the Hurricanes system, and then I had went over and played professionally in Europe.
And so you got drafted. What did they say to you when you got drafted to the NHL? Like where were you? Where do you fit in the puzzle piece of the Carolina Hurricanes? Like, did they give you any of that, or?
Yeah, that's not. That wasn't like a dialogue that I had. Obviously, every player and every round is different. So if you come in and again you're the general manager of Toronto Maple Leafs today, and you know that you're picking player in the first round, 10th overall, well, you're going to want that player to succeed, right? He's your guy. Where 2 drafts ago, it might not have been your guy that was chosen in the first round. So, like, there's a lot of emotions that could be attached to players, too, that nobody talks about.
Right.
So, Carolina at the time, like, the GM that I was under mainly was there wasn't many guys that actually advanced into the NHL because they were signing older guys to smaller contracts, 1-year contracts, and it was tough. Like I've seen many guys in that system, first, second round picks that never made it either. So like the margin is like super thin. Like the average length of an NHL career, like full time, I think is only 3 or 4 years.
Jeez, and that's like the 15-year guys, 10-year guys balancing out against the majority of the 1-2-year guys, or the guys that don't even make it to play a game.
Correct.
Did you play a game in the NHL?
Played 3 games in
Played
the
3
NHL.
games. What was it like? Like what was that? It must be like so cool to reminisce on that.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's bringing back like great emotions right now for me. Well, one, because my whole family could be there, which was awesome. You know,
It's your home opener.
Yeah. So my home opener was in Montreal at the Bell Center. My billet was able to come. All my siblings were able to come. My wife, Danielle, at the time, we were together, and she was able to experience it with me. And the Stahl family was, like, great to me. So, like, in the NHL, you have to pay for tickets on the road.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know somebody, and you go to Toronto, and I'm playing on Carolina. Like, I have to pay for the tickets for them to enter the building.
Right.
So I think I had 9 or 10 tickets that night, and you're in the Bell Center, which is one of the biggest markets. So it's like $500 a ticket. So I would have just played for free that day, right? But at the end of the game, Eric and Jordan, the PR guy, came up to me and he said, "Eric and Jordan took care of your tickets. Don't worry about it." Yeah. And it was just like fond memories like that where like Eric and Jordan, like Eric, what a career he had, and Jordan still today competing. But just like internal competition, like born leaders, but then why did they have to do that for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like those little minor details, like just karma, right? Just always giving back.
Yeah. It's actually like it's a sweet thing to see you look back on that, like those memories. Did you? Because you were a big performer in the AHL. You did really well in the AHL, from what I know about you. Is that right?
Yeah, I had some good years statistically.
Yeah. So I remember when we met for coffee, like you actually did pretty well in the AHL, and enough to where like I would think somebody like me, I would be like, well, you should go play more games. Why do you think you didn't play more games with the Hurricanes in the show? Do you know, or is it kind of just like it just didn't work out, or?
I think it goes back to like opportunity. Like if you're able to get an opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, working at Google or starting a podcast or trying to play in the NHL. Like it could come and go so fast that now I'm retired and I don't have any regrets, but you know, maybe could I have not had as many beers one night, or maybe could I have meditated more, or should I have, you know, hired a therapist and worked on like had more of like a mental training coach and a therapist? Like what are some of these details that could have created a 10 to 15 year NHL career? I don't know personally. Like I could go back and say that I definitely would have done more brain training, like more neurological brain training, where like you have to have self-confidence, right? Like, you can't go in and think like you're going to lose game 7. You can't think like you're going to play on a losing team. You can't say, why me? Like, fear creeps into everybody. It doesn't matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you let the fear creep in and it's like, well, I'm not going to perform tonight, or, why me, or why didn't I get this contract? I think like maybe that was a part of my downfall, was I overthought and I let fear creep in a little bit too much.
Interesting. So you think that the mental side of playing in the NHL, do you think that is even to the skill side or even more of a factor?
Well, take a 10-year-old, and you have a 10-year-old playing AAA, and they might be biologically the biggest player. So he's going to play from a AAA to maybe a junior level at the biggest player. But what happens when they catch up at 22, 23? Mm-hmm. Every skill that player learns, he's going to have to change his game at 22, 23. But what you can try to do with a small player or a player like that is the work ethic has to be taught at a young age, right? You find foundations in, say, skating, work ethic, multiple different categories where you can take, like, what can they work on that they're not good at?
Right. So
Right?
really strengthening the weaknesses.
Yeah, like take the skill gap and make sure that we're working on what we need to work on because we already know what you're good at.
Right.
Right? So going back to my point is, as you grow older and develop and become more mature, and everybody else is catching up to you physically, eventually everybody's going to get there, right? Whether you're the big player at 10 or you're the small player, but what can you change and work on as the skill continues to increase? So every player wants to play with the best players, right? Like when I was younger, I wanted to be the best player. I wanted to play with the best players, right? So I played host league and then I played AAA because I wanted to play with the best players. So the next level would be, let's go to the OHL and be the best player. Okay, so everybody's still growing. And then you have that skill gap of, you don't know if you're going to score 40 goals, 50 goals, 10 goals, but how do you get better? So now you're working on the adversity in the game, but the skill is going to get better and better and better. But your work ethic has to get better and better and better, because the margins of playing in the NHL and then you're competing at a world level opposed to a AAA regional level is only going to get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Right. So we can work on everything physically. Right. But how do you become, Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid? Like, how do you become the superstar? How do you play for 10 years? How do you score 50 goals in the NHL? Like,
is that what Shugg Academy is more trained towards doing? Like, not just the skill side of it, but as well the mental side of playing?
Like we're going to focus on the mental side of the game, right? Whether that is, meditation or journaling or understanding that, like, every day you wake up and you look in the mirror, like, what is your self-image like? Like, how self-confident are you? Do you say, I can play in the NHL every day? Or are you fearful and just competing because, Johnny is the best player on my team right now?
Right.
And you don't think you're as good as him. But you're at such a young age, like, the gap is always going to change. And you're always going to have to figure out how to be and excel as the best player as you continue to grow in each league, right?
Right. So what are some things you kind of took from the NHL that you really learned? Like, you mentioned some of the things that you would have done different. What are, like, 3 takeaways from playing in the NHL? I mean, it's so cool. Like, you got to be in the locker room with the guys. Like, what are 3 takeaways that you could maybe think about and mention?
One would be, like, bio-individuality. Like, I can't say to you that you're going to eat sweet potatoes, fish, and corn for a pregame meal, and I'm going to eat French fries and a hamburger, and you're going to outperform me because you had a healthier meal. So, like, I don't think that, like, you can directly compare yourself to anybody, whether it's skating, nutrition, what they're doing off ice in terms of training. Like that would be one major factor. Like probably the biggest is like not comparing yourself to anybody else.
Well, it's so hard to. I mean, like if you're playing in a league that characterizes you as the same as Bobby Orr that played in that same exact league, like, or Wayne Gretzky, that's pretty crazy to think about. Like, how do you not compare yourself to that? I guess, right? Like, it's just, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, like that would be like the mental training. Like if you're willing to train mentally for 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week or 6 days, and then you end up getting to that 60-minute mark where you're trying to change your neural pathways for 1 hour a week and nobody else is doing that. I think that can be a big difference long term, right? Like it's very minor, but as you grow up socially, especially as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, and then you mature physically, and then you have to continue to think about that.
Yeah.
I think that there could be a major difference in how you view yourself and how you're going to perform under pressure. Because physically, like another big takeaway would be, I didn't learn it until I moved to Red Bull, but like the anaerobic versus aerobic capacity of your body and what it can do for you for the longevity of your career. So
they trained you with that.
Yeah. So aerobically, like for injury prevention, and if you flush lactic acid out by riding a bike for 30 minutes a day, you're less prone to injury over the course of a season. Where in North America, all I ever did was train anaerobically, which would be sprints or focusing on the 45-second minute shifts, right? So there's factors like that training wise where Red Bull has 40 or 50 years of statistics and they're testing lactic acid to see where you are and how much you can flush out of your body physically, right? So that would be another major takeaway. Like even at the NHL level, like some of the tests that you're able to go under, like a VO2 max, to see like how do you get better from what you did last year? Like what can I do better? Like can I do more yoga? Can I do more cardiovascular? Like should I be weight training more? Like what supplements should I be on?
Is that what all the players do? Like do they?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like they're supposed to.
Well, like if you're not training 12 months a year, like
there's
a very small percentage, like early in your career, if you're not training 12 months a year, you'll never not make it. But it's like you have to be committed 12 months a year, right? Like until you end up on a 5, 6, 7, 8-year deal where it's like what you're good at, you focus on what you're good at, you focus and work on what you're not so great at, and you continue to be who you are in the NHL, you'll be okay.
Right.
But before that, like you sign a 3-year entry-level contract, you only have 3 years.
To like really make a lasting impact.
Well, I don't know the percentage, but how many players don't sign another deal after their entry-level contract with an NHL team?
Oh, it's got to be a lot.
Right?
So is that what you got when you got in? That's your...
Yeah, so it's called an entry-level contract.
What does that look like?
It would have a signing bonus, and then it would have an NHL salary and then an American League salary. And then there's like bonuses. So the bonuses would be like an ABC schedule bonuses.
So, sorry, what would be like some of the numbers? Because I think a lot of people are curious. Like you don't have to say yours, but like what are some of like the average numbers of like is it the same per player?
Yeah. Well, depending on what the salary cap again, but I think a maximum contract now is $925 in the NHL, $92.5 in the American League, and then a signing bonus of...
That's a lot. That's a big difference. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That's so big.
Oh,
I mean, $100,000 a year still isn't bad though.
No, it's not.
At all.
It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if like you're playing a sport and you love it, like it's great.
Imagine getting paid $100,000 a year to just play hockey. That's a dream.
Well, we forgot about the signing bonus. So if you factor in the signing bonus, it's like it'd be like around 180 for an entry level.
Wow.
Yeah, on an entry level contract.
So getting into the show, like, I mean, as long as you're smart with your money, like you're good. Even if you play 3 years. Like those 3 years, you make a good chunk. Now, like you went down to the AHL, but you're still doing well for yourself. Like a lot of people work their entire lives, like 40 years to get a raise to get to like 75 grand. You put in a lot of time. Still, you just started younger, 15, 20 years, right? You get drafted. You're already at 100 grand. Like that's insane.
Yeah. When the first paycheck came in, it's amazing. And then you get taxed.
Yeah. Nobody ever factors tax in, right? Nobody ever factors tax in. But it must be so rewarding to like, and I guess that kind of goes into doing what you love. And I know like you now you're more getting into now finding now, okay, this is what I love. Like I like training people. I'm enjoying that. And it's like to be able to get paid to do what you love. What was that feeling like? Because it must have been the first time you kind of felt that, like to get paid to play hockey, aka doing what you love, and a good chunk of money, like getting that first paycheck must have been so rewarding.
Yeah. And at the time, like when you're in it and you're focused, like I might have been, or I was ignorant to the amount of money that comes with being a professional athlete, right? So now that I'm out of the game, I'm like how hard you have to work for yourself to get to where I was at. I'm like, there's a big swing there.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, from all the injuries I had and all the life experiences and all the relationships and what the game has taught me on and off the ice, I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't change any of it. I think hockey and like being on a team and building relationships with others and putting your body on the line and maximizing your potential physically and mentally with others is rewarding, right? I've created relationships and won championships with guys that, I'm going to know them and they know my family and my daughter and my wife like extremely well. And I can't say enough good things about some of the guys that I went to war with. Mm-hmm. You don't get that when you are working at, Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe most other places where like that camaraderie from a bunch of guys that have a common goal to win. Like it's a feeling that you don't get in many places.
I love that you just said that because like to any business, it goes back to business, right? It's like if a leader in a business can build a team with one common goal, you will be a successful team. It's like real estate. It's like a media company, what we do. It's same with hockey, sports. If you build a team to help you scale, you're all pointed towards one direction. And it's your job as the leader to point them towards that one direction. Now, obviously like every industry is a little bit different. Professional sports, everybody just wants to win. You literally just focus on winning. With business, maybe it's a little bit different, but there's different style of winning, right? What is it like now knowing the people that you know, starting Shugg Academy? You mentioned that you and your wife have had this idea of some kind and now for a while and now are able to make it come to life. What's that like? How are you doing it now? What's going on? Give us a little rundown.
We just released the website last week and our dreams are coming true to giving back to the community. Like she's 100% into health and wellness, which I think she helped me throughout my career. And what she's able to bring to the table is like the help with the mental side, but the yoga and the Pilates. And what we can do and offer together isn't going to be what we can offer this summer. Like we're starting small and intimate, and this would be publicly the first time that we would announce the Shugg Academy.
Yeah. Really, eh?
Yeah.
That's
Gave
awesome.
it to you, brother.
I appreciate it. Well, look at that.
Yeah. And so we're looking to start small and intimate, and what I'm doing is focusing on just 5 kids on the ice, right?
Smart.
Yeah. So like the component would be like we have 5 kids on the ice and I can coach the 5 kids. So how do we internally all get better together, right? We're competing against one another. You might have somebody that is a age or two difference from you, but that's good. That'll drive somebody to be the best player or catch up to the best player on the ice. So the coaching side for me would be, how do we all grow and learn together? But then you have the teaching side. So how do I teach each individual to correct? Are they leading with their head? Are they dragging their toes on crossovers, right? So now I can see where the gaps are, and we can correct each individual as we move forward together, right?
Right.
Where I'm not against, 25 to 30 kids on the ice. You can have great drills that way. But what I'm into is actually watching and helping grow kids that, have the heart and passion to be a competitor at the next level.
Right. Are you focusing on, like, will you be training single A teams, or will you solely be training kids that are just absolutely driven to making it to the NHL?
Right now we're just focused on small groups and private sessions.
Yeah.
So haven't reached out to any regional clubs where I'm willing to move forward and be the skill coach, because I don't really think I'm going to label myself as a skill coach, right? Like, I'm just developing players in hockey, right?
Right.
I don't want to be the power skating coach. I don't want to be the stick handling coach. I want to be the coach that's helping a player grow in the game.
Right. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, it's you've got the, like, I kind of said this off camera, but you have the experience, the qualifications behind you. You have the people behind you to help make it happen. Your wife definitely helps you out a lot. And it just seems like it's one full team working towards, like we said, one common goal. So as that goal, maybe you start to make that goal bigger. Like right now you're starting with more, 5 kids, 6 kids, whatever it is, really focusing on like individual kids. Will you raise that goal to more people? Is that a aspiration of yours? And if so, how do you think you'll go about it?
When we first moved back here, we drove past Ridley College and private school. They have a hockey club, and we just looked at each other and we're like, we want to compete with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And playing in Red Bull, like their academy in Salzburg, like you have sports and education mixed, and we want to compete with that. Like we want to be able to grow and create this great facility for kids to learn and be social with each other, but understand the team and what a team can do for you on and off the ice as you grow into your teenage years, where like you have so much adversity, right?
Yeah.
Like you have so much adversity in your teenage years on, you have to make a decision on what you want to take in school, or who are you getting along with? Like, is it okay to be an introvert or an extrovert? Of course it is. But we want to be able to mix sports and education and grow that in the Niagara region. I think that it's not missing, but we feel that we can add to what's here.
Right. Well, what's nice is, I kind of just mentioned this, but like you have a strong complement of both sides of teaching hockey, the skills, but also the mental side, especially with your wife, and the qualifications behind you. I feel like you can offer some competitive, understanding of the game, because you've seen firsthand what is coming from like Red Bull and Europe, playing there, playing in the show. It's hard to understand that when you haven't played professionally. It's just, I think it's a little bit complicated. So I guess now, kind of understanding where you want to take things, I want to take it back. Where did the idea of the Shugg Academy come from? Why did you want to pursue that? And why was that the route you wanted to take outside of the show?
Going back to like giving back to the community, there's a lot that I look back on in my career that I wish I could have had. I had a lot of good coaches. I've learned from a lot of good mentors, but early on, when you're at this age where they're so malleable, like 8 to 14 years old, like they can learn so much. So what a great opportunity to give back to a boy or a family
Yeah.
or even a young girl that is in hockey and help them along the way, right? I think that it's important, like with some of the guys, like or the kids that I have, like if I'm able to take them out away from the ice and get to know them a little bit so they can be vulnerable with me and I can be vulnerable with them and we can learn together, I think that's going to be really important. I don't think that I 100% have this grand vision in my head because I'm going to learn too, just as much as the kids are going to learn, right? We're going to be teaching each other.
Right. Well, it's good that you see it that way. I mean, do you think that kind of stems from the relationship building background that you have in the NHL and just like playing hockey? I mean, you play hockey with so many different teammates and you have to be so close to all of them because, I mean, they're your teammates.
Yeah, you're like the relationships and socially, like I've met so many guys and not everybody's the same, right? Some like to read books, some like to play video games, some like to drink beer. Like everybody's got their own hobbies, but we end up going to work together and we're employed by the same person. So you have to learn other people's tendencies and their relationship to you so you can grow as a team and excel together.
Right.
So that part of it, I'm like, okay, well, you have to manage parents and you have to manage the player.
That's right. I forgot how big of a role parents play in, especially because it's such a, like to get drafted. I mean, you're so young. A lot of guys get drafted, like they can't even go buy a house yet, right? They can't qualify for a mortgage. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, not a lot of people can qualify for a mortgage now, but like it's so interesting. You hear it a lot, like the crazy parents in the stands and stuff like that. So I guess like, what were your parents like when you were going to pursue the route of playing in the NHL? Were they like those hockey parents that were all like, you're going to go to, or more just like, we support you, we'll help you do whatever you want?
I had 3 siblings and like busy family, right? So they supported me like with everything that I wanted and needed to do. But it wasn't that they pushed me to go to the rink.
Okay,
right? They
that's
didn't
interesting.
push me to go shoot pucks in the garage.
Yeah.
They weren't saying, okay, Justin, this is, we're going to be on the ice 3 days a week or we're going to train 3 days a week. I trained with my teams and I trained with them, but it wasn't their choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's really important. Like going back to parents, it's like the individual is going to show you how bad they want it.
Yes.
Right?
Because even at a young age, like if you really want something that bad, I feel like the ones that do subconsciously work harder than anybody else to get that one thing. And so if you don't want it, it'll show. And parents forcing it, I mean, it ends in a whole other tidal wave that you don't want to crash.
Yeah, like even for me, like I know how hard I'm willing to work, and I don't give up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to be somebody to keel over and just give up. Like I'm going to work through everything and put my heart and soul into it. So if somebody else isn't willing to do that, like I'll know.
What was the biggest challenge? Because it is interesting. I think a lot of people who played professional sports have this attitude of not quitting because like to get to that level, it's literally 1 in a million. In fact, I think it's more than that, to be honest. I don't quote me on that, but like, what was one of the things, or challenges that really just said to you, maybe this isn't the way maybe this isn't my thing? Did you ever have any doubting moments, anything that ever happened that was like, no? Or were you just that self-confident that you knew you were going to go?
Well, I just think like your emotions and thoughts, they're always going to ebb and flow.
Right.
Right. So yeah, there was lots of times where I needed self-help, right? Like you have to be courageous and vulnerable to grow. And like I read a book called Psycho-Cybernetics when I was early 20s. And one of the first chapters was, what do you tell yourself every day you wake up? Like every single day you have a choice. Like, are you tired? Actually, or do you tell yourself you're tired?
Right, right.
So every day you wake up, you have the first thought and you have a choice. Then you have your second thought. You go brush your teeth and you look in the mirror and what do you think? So I always lived by that. Like I always knew that I had a choice and it was my choice to make. So whether I was competing on the golf course or competing against, some of the guys that I grew up training with and we all turned pros, like I always knew that I wanted to be better than them.
Right, right.
And I do think like at an elite level, whether you're selling houses or you're playing baseball, like most people have that drive to be the best when you're successful, right?
Yeah.
You bring the honesty and integrity out of a person and they're meaning to do well with the work ethic. Like it's hard not to succeed.
It's true. Yeah, it really is. It's kind of, I kind of said this myself, like it's kind of like a cheat code. If you really just work harder than everybody else and have that self-confidence to do so without expecting any immediate results and having delayed gratification, like you're bound for success immensely without question. It's just a matter of time, right? So Justin, I got one last question for you before we wrap up today. I want to ask you, what was the best piece of advice you received from being born to being who you are now? And what is the best piece of advice you could give to a young kid wanting to go to the NHL?
I guess going to the NHL, it would go back to a story that I was told before I got drafted. And it was a story of two baseball players. It was the ninth inning, and pop fly comes to center field, and the rookie catches the ball, and the game's over, closes out the game. And he's got the ball in his mitt, and great. He's like looking at it, had a great game. We just won. He's walking in, and the veteran in the left field runs over to the rookie and taps him on the butt and says, "Hey kid, we should run it in. We never know who's watching." So I've lived through that motto as well, because you never know who could be watching you while you're playing or practicing, or how you're taking care of yourself off the ice.
I actually really like that. I love this, the way that you put that story in. Can you kind of dissect a little bit more of an understanding just in terms of like when the vet says, "Hey, we got to run it in," that really does focus on working hard when nobody else is watching, right? Is that kind of...
Yeah. Well, most sacrifices come when
Nobody's
nobody
watching.
sees you, right?
Yeah.
Like, and most sacrifices are you versus you. So how well are you playing the you versus you game, right? Like being obese is a choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like feeling bad for yourself is a choice.
Yeah.
Like we all have choices, right?
Like being, I actually, it's cool. I talked about this with Jared. It's like being a victim to your own circumstances, like you said, is a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
I think like when we talk about like the fear, I think victimhood is like, there's a lot of fear that is in somebody that's always the victim.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're just always fearful of what's going to happen next, or what can't they do, or why don't they go to the gym, or why they can't lose the 10 pounds. Right. And it's really just a thought.
Yeah. It's crazy. The movie Inception, like they portrayed just the thought so well. I think that's why it was such a good movie. I don't know if you watched it, but like they said, a thought can consume you. And that's what it did for what's his name's wife. Like it, you know what I mean? Like it consumes you, and it can ruin you, or it can allow you to triumph over your circumstances. Right. Well, on that note, Justin, I want to say a big thank you for coming on, man, taking the time out of your day to do this. If you guys have any questions for Justin or want to reach out, I mean, seems like a pretty good coach. I'm not good enough to be on the ice with him, but maybe we'll play beer league or something like that sometime. But if they want to reach out, how can they do so? I think they should check out your new website.
Yeah, check out the website, ShuggAcademy.com.
I love it. I love it. Well, on that note, guys, all the best, and I'll see you in another episode. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment down below questions that you want us to ask other golden individuals like Mr. The Shugg Experience over here. All the best, guys. Thank you for listening to this week's Golden Guest on the Meeting Gold podcast. If you learned something from today's episode, make sure to check out our other content on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, make sure to leave us a follow while you're there. Thanks, and have a golden day.